the mountain of the Lord. Come into his presence with thanksgiving. Come with praise to his holy courts. Bowi, bowi kala, bowi, bowi kala. Bowi, bowi kala. Spirit and the bride say come. Come now, O house of Israel. Let us walk in the light of the Lord. Let us walk in the light of the Lord. Come and see the works of Adonai. Come and hear all you who fear. Come in house with offerings. Bowi, bowi kala, bowi, bowi kala. Oh, bowi, bowi kala. Spirit and the bride say come. Come now, O house of Israel. Let us walk in the light of the Lord. Let us walk in the light of the Lord. Come up now, we'll show you what will be. A voice like a trumpet and the dead will rise. Come, my beloved, and go into the field. Bowi, bowi kala, bowi, bowi kala. Bowi, bowi kala. The Spirit and the bride say come. Come now, O house of Israel. Let us walk in the light of the Lord. Let us walk in the light of the Lord. Come up to the mountain of the Lord. Come into his presence with thanksgiving. Come with praise to his holy courts. Bowi, bowi kala, bowi, bowi kala. Oh, bowi, bowi kala. Spirit and the bride say come. Come now, O house of Israel. Let us walk in the light of the Lord. Let us walk in the light of the Lord. Come and see. Oh, come and see the works of Adonai. Come and hear all you who fear. Come to his house with offerings. Bowi, bowi kala, bowi, bowi kala. Oh, bowi, bowi kala. The Spirit and the bride say come. Come now, O house of Israel. Let us walk in the light of the Lord. Bowi, bowi kala. The Spirit and the bride say come now. Come now, O house of Israel. Let us walk in the light of the Lord. Let us walk in the light of the Lord. Let us walk in the light of the Lord. Gracious is the Lord, he is righteous. Yes, I know compassionate is he. I was brought low and he saved me. My soul from death, feet from stumbling. I will walk before the Lord. Et haleg lifnei Adonai. In the land of the living there. Ba'atzot ha'chaim Adonai. Hanun Adonai b'tzadik. Gracious are you to me. Hanun Adonai b'tzadik. Kala kamo bright and sweet. Adonai b'tzadik. Gracious are you to me. Adonai b'tzadik. is the Lord, He is righteous. Yes, I know compassionate is He. I was brought low when He saved me, my soul from death, freed from stumbling. I will walk before the Lord, et haleg lifnei Adonai, in the land of the living there. Ba'atzot ha'chaim Adonai, Adonai b'tzadik. Gracious are you to me. Hanun Adonai b'tzadik. Oi kala kamo by and see. Hanun Adonai b'tzadik. Gracious are you to me. Hanun Adonai b'tzadik. Oh, boi kala kamo by and see. Okay. I will look to the mountain, from where my help comes. I will look to the mountain, from where my help comes. My help comes from the Lord, maker of the earth and the heavens. The earth quaked and the heavens dropped their rain at the face of the Lord. Sinai at the presence of our God, the God of Israel. Let God arise, let God arise, let all of His enemies be scattered. Let God arise like smoke and wax before the fire. God arise, let all of His enemies be scattered. Let God arise. Sing to Him, sing praises to His name. Oh, I will look to the mountain, from where my help comes. I will look to the mountain, from where my help comes. My help comes from the Lord, maker of the earth and the heavens. The earth quakes, heavens drop their rain at the face of the Lord. Oh, at Sinai, at the presence of our God, the God of Israel. Let God arise, let all of His enemies be scattered. Let God arise like smoke and wax before the fire. Let God arise, let God arise, let all of His enemies be praises to your name, Yehovah. We thank you that you are faithful, which Yehovah means. We thank you that you fulfill every single thing that you have said, and you're going to fulfill every single thing you've said. And I ask that your Ruach and your Torah would braid together in our minds and our hearts, and that you would show us what you have promised to come. In the name of Yeshua, amen. Well, in case you couldn't tell by the songs, this is all about come. Bo, the word bo in Hebrew, and it's very strange in the text because it's backwards, and that's why we're focusing on it. The name of the Torah portion is bo, which means come, but it shouldn't be come. It should be go, but it's not go. It's come, and that's what I'm going to talk about. That's what I want to focus on. Why? We talked about this last year. Why is it come instead of go? And what I'm saying is that I'm talking about God talking to Moses and saying what's translated, go to Pharaoh and say, let my people go, which is also wrong. It's send them out, shalach, send my people out as apostles, send them out. Never says let my people go. So it's translated 3 times wrong in most Bibles. I don't know how it is in King James, but in New American Standard for sure, and a couple of others, it says, go to Pharaoh and say whatever God's message is. But it's not. It's come to Pharaoh, which puts God next to Pharaoh, saying, come to Pharaoh, because he's right here, and say whatever I want you to say, which is very weird. But it makes perfect and total sense if you understand the day of the Lord. If you don't understand the day of the Lord, it's upside down and backwards. It makes no sense. So this is the passage we're gonna focus on, Exodus 10, 1 through 20. And then we're going to focus on 2 things which are highlighted in the passage. Number 1 is that the locust coming is going to obscure the earth. It's like a cloud that's so dense and so thick you can't even see the earth. That's number 1. And number 2, all the different clues that are in it that say when it's going to happen. Those are the 2 things we're going to focus on. Then Yehovah said to Moshe, come to Pharaoh, for I have hardened his heart and the heart of his servants, so that I may do these signs of mine in them. In them, not in Egypt, in them. I'm going to do these makot, which is spankings, in them. And that you may tell how I made a mockery of the Egyptians. And that's really important. Most of you don't know, some of you do, that God mocks. In our culture, we hate mockery. We hate when anybody mocks anybody. But in the Torah, many times it says we're supposed to mock and put down and embarrass and shame idolatry. It says it many times. But then when we do it, people get mad. Because we're just, in our culture, we just don't do that. In America, we just don't mock anything because it's bad form. It's, it's rude. But that means God's rude because he mocked, and he told the Jews to mock idolatry. Yes? It is not Lashon Hara if it's against idolatry. Ever, ever, ever. It's Lashon Hara, which means evil speech, gossip, if it's against a human being. Idolatry isn't a human being. It's evil. It's demonic. It's a demon. It's Hasatan. It's from the pit. Ridiculous. It's from hell. It's from Hasatan. It's from the evil one. It's from the evil side. And we're supposed to mock it, just like God mocked it. But, that's another issue that maybe we'll tackle another time. But anyway, I want you to be aware of that is in the text. That God says, how I made a mockery of the Egyptians, and so that you may know that I am Yehovah. So Moshe and Aharon came to Pharaoh, there it is again, came to Pharaoh and said, send my people so that they may serve me. For if you refuse to send them, he said to Pharaoh, I'm going to bring locusts into your borders. Behold, tomorrow I will bring locusts into your land. They will obscure the view of the earth. Now, this is not hyperbole. This is not exaggeration. It's important. It's an important thing that God said, that when these locusts come, they come in a cloud that literally is such a thick cloud that you cannot see the earth through it. Very, very important. And no one will be able to see the earth. And they will eat the remnant. Then your houses will be filled with them, and the houses of all the Egyptians. Now, here's the first clues we see of when it's going to happen. Now, we read this, and there's a couple others that we read like Americans, and it sounds like it never happened before, and it's not going to be like this again. And we're like, okay, it's like something weird. Not what it's saying at all. It's telling us when it's going to happen, which I'll show you more. Something which neither your fathers nor your grandfathers have seen from the day they came up upon the earth, since humans came, until this day. It doesn't just mean like it's never happened before. It means it's going to be different next time. And he'll say that. And he turned and left Pharaoh. So Moshe and Aharon were brought back to Pharaoh because they told him, the land is ruined. Are you crazy? Bring them back. Don't do this to us. Come on. And so he says, all right, bring them back. So he brought back to Pharaoh, and he said to them, go, serve Jehovah. Now this is Pharaoh talking. And Pharaoh uses the name of God. He says, go serve Jehovah. And remember, the vowels for Jehovah are Shva, Chalom, the dot on top, and Patach, Ah. O, Ah. It cannot be anything else. So we know it's Yehovah. More documented than anything else in Judaism except for pictures. Go serve, so this is the evil one talking, go serve Yehovah your God. Who's going to go with you? Moshe said, we got everybody. The young, the old, the women, the children, the babies, the animals, everything and everybody. For we must hold a chag, a feast to the Lord. Now, what the original plan was, and God said it 3 times. He said, tell Pharaoh you need to go 3 days into the wilderness to hold a chag, a feast. That was the original plan. And then he hardened the heart of Pharaoh and all of Egypt after they made the choice to harden their own hearts. And it changed. It got bigger. God added to the plan. So it wasn't 3 days. It was 3 months and 3 days. And so after 3 months and 3 days, they came to Mount Sinai, and God said, wait 3 days. And there's the 3 days. Wait 3 days, and we're going to have a big, giant chag. And that's Shavuot, that's Pentecost. So he says, everybody's got to go. We have to hold the feast of the Lord. Now think about it. He says the women and children have to go and the animals to make sacrifice. Children don't make sacrifice, do they? No. So that's one of the rationales that Pharaoh said, nah, you're lying. Nah, this is nonsense. And that's what he says. Pharaoh said, watch out, for evil is in your mind. You're full of it. That's what he says. So he says, no, not so. You're not going. But now only the men and serve Yehovah, since that's what you said you want. So they were driven out from Pharaoh's presence, and Yehovah said to Moshe, reach out with your hand over the land of Egypt for the locusts, so that they may come up on the land. The Lord directed an east wind all that day and all that night, and when it was morning, the east wind brought the locust. Now, we're not going to go into it today because there's just no time, but the east wind, and you can research this for yourself, the east wind in Judaism, because of all the scriptures that say it, is the coming of the Messiah. That's what the east wind is. The coming of the Messiah to judge. That's what the rabbis say. So, the east wind brought the locusts, and the locusts came up over the land of Egypt and settled in all the territory of Egypt. Very many. And here's another clue. This is when. There had never been such locusts, and there wouldn't be such again. So we read that and we're like, okay, it's going to just be different next time. Probably not as bad, because never been anything like this and never will be again, so this is the worst. Exactly the opposite of what he's saying. There's a lot of passages in the prophets that say this phrase. And what it says, it explains it, and it says, in that day, it's going to be worse. In that day, in the day of the Lord, it's going to be worse. Never been anything like this, and never will be again, because next time it's going to be worse. In other words, this that's happening is a direct prophecy, a direct picture of the next time. Only next time it's going to be worse. I'll give you an example. You're not going to like it, but this is the only example I can think of. I'm sorry about that. In Zechariah chapter 10, it says that of all the Jewish people on earth, 2/3 will be destroyed. 2/3 will be wiped out in that day. And it says in that day, I think 12 times from chapter 10 to chapter 14. Or maybe it's more. I think it's 12, but it might be more. In that day, day of the Lord, day of the Lord. And that in the day of the Lord, 2/3 of all Jews on the planet will be destroyed. How many Jews were destroyed in the Holocaust? What percentage? What percentage? 1/3. 1/3. 1/3 of all Jews on the planet were wiped out. That's right. In the kingdom, it's going to be 2/3. 2/3. It's going to be twice as bad. Go check the numbers. You'll see. Go check it. So, this is one example. God says there's never been anything like this, and there never will be again, because it's going to be worse the next time, in the day of the Lord. Now, we don't like that, but that's the reality. Never been such locusts, nor would there be such again, for they covered the face of the whole land so that the land was darkened. So, this concept of come, God says it over and over and over about coming to Pharaoh. Exodus 3:10 from last week. Now come, and I'll send you to Pharaoh. Exodus 3:18, and you shall come, you and the elders of Israel, to the king of Egypt, and say to him. Exodus 6:10 through 11, the Lord said to Moshe, come, speak to Pharaoh. So over and over, God sets himself next to Pharaoh and says, come talk to him. What in the world is God doing next to Pharaoh? He should be away from Pharaoh, saying, go to him and judge him. But he doesn't. He says, come over here with me and my buddy and talk to him. So that puts us with God and Pharaoh in a particular place and time. And that's the point of it. In Revelation 6, we are now in the day of the Lord. The whole book of Revelation is in the day of the Lord. In chapter 1, verse 10, it says, I heard a shofar blow, and it said, come up, arise. And I went up, and the whole book of Revelation was revealed to John, Yochanan. So, in other words, he went in the resurrection. And that's the beginning of the day of the Lord. The resurrection happens on day 1 of the day of the Lord. And the day of the Lord is 1,000 years long. The day of God is 1,000 years long. Day 1 of it, like literal 24-hour day, day 1 of it, the resurrection occurs. And John experienced it. Don't know how, but he did. And so he was taken up to the kingdom. Not so much up, taken in the future to the kingdom. And he just wrote what he saw in the kingdom. And in the kingdom, in the day of the Lord, when I say day of the Lord, it's synonymous with the word kingdom, malchut. In the day of the Lord, in the book of Revelation, it says this. Well, before I read this. What's God's throne made out of? Very good. Angels, cherubim. 4-headed creatures with 6 wings. 4 wings that drive them, 2 that stand to cover them. So there's these, we'll say 4-winged, 4-headed creatures that never turn when they move. You got a face going this way, you got a face going this way, face going this way, and a face to the back. So if God wants to go that way, we just follow that face. If we want to go that way, we follow that face. And there's 4 of them, and they're at the 4 corners, and they have these big, giant wheels next to them. And the spirit of the Hayot, which means living creatures, that's what these are, living creatures, Hayot, that's what it says in the prophets. The spirit of the Hayot are in the wheels, the 4 wheels, because there's 4 of them. It makes sense? That's God's chariot. The wheels aren't really wheels. They're, I don't know what they are. They're things, they're creatures. I don't know what they are.
Isn't the word for wheel in that passage also brightness?
No, the word for wheel is olot, which just means turning thing. So it had brightness in it, but the word for the wheel is just a turning thing. So there's 4 wheels, 4 living creatures, and that carts God around, so to speak. This is all metaphor, obviously. And that's what Yochanan saw, just like Ezekiel saw it, just like Isaiah saw it, just like Jeremiah saw it, just like Micah saw it, just like David saw it, just like Solomon saw it. That's all I can think. Oh, just like Elijah saw it. So it says in 6:1, I saw the Lamb broke one of the 7 seals. Now, in order to understand this teaching, you have to understand the most basic thing about the book of Chazon, Revelation. And that's this, and I'll make it super simple. There's 7 shofars, each one per year. There's 7 seals, 1 per year. There's 7 machtot, which is a fire pan. You know, like you shovel out the ashes from a fireplace, and they have that shovel. It's exactly that, just a little bigger, and it connects to the arm. And the priests use them to get live coals from the altar. It's badly translated as bowls. Becca, you just moved the thing. As bowls and vials, I think. It's machtot, or machta, singular. So that's how I'm going to translate it in the slides, machta. So, then I saw the Lamb broke one of the 7 seals. What year of the birth pangs is it? Now, the birth pangs are the first 7 years of the day of the Lord. The birth pangs, what the Jewish people call Chevlei HaMashiach, or birth pangs, the church calls tribulation. It's not tribulation, it's birth pangs. And the first 7 years of the 1,000-year day of the Lord is those birth pangs. Now this says, I saw one of the seals broken. What year of the 7 years is it?
First year.
Very good. The first year. It's year 1. I saw the Lamb broke one of the 7 seals, and I heard one of the chayot go, "Bo!" Verse 3. Then he broke the 2nd seal, 2nd year. And I heard the 2nd chaya, or chayot, say, "Bo, come!" Why is he doing that? Why are they doing that? Verse 5, same chapter. Then he broke the 3rd seal, 3rd year of the birth pangs. And the 3rd chaya said, "Bo!" And I looked, and behold, a black horse, and the one seated on it had a pair of scales. This is famine. Verse 7, same chapter. When he broke the 4th seal, 4th year of the birth pangs, I heard the voice of the 4th chaya saying, "Bo!" And I looked, and behold, an ashen horse, like grayish, like gray horse. And the one who seated on it had the name Death, and hell was following after him. So, we are into the 4th year of the birth pangs. Year 1, year 2, year 3, year 4. Each year, one of the chayot says bo. Why are they saying bo? Same reason God said bo. Same reason God said, Moshe, come to Pharaoh and say, "Come on, plagues. Come on, plagues. Bring it." Same thing's going to happen. So this is what I'm telling you. And you don't have to believe me. You can go check this in many, many, many sources in Judaism. Every single, quote, plague of the 10 plagues that happened was a picture of the day of the Lord. The way they say it is this. Bo, I mean, this Torah portion is all about our redemption. That's what it's about, that we were taken Yitziat Mitzrayim, out of Egypt, and that is our redemption. All the Jewish people get to, have that as our redemption, and it's all a picture, a shadow of the redemption to come. It's called the second redemption. That's the day of the Lord. You understand what I'm saying? You follow that? So, when we look at the plague, or it's actually spanking, makot, which means a spanking, of the locusts, that's what we're going to see. But here's the trick. All 10 are like this. So you can't just read the book of Exodus and the 10, quote, plagues as happening historically. You must understand that God's going to do this again. And why did he put all this stuff in the Bible in the first place? He could have just said, and then God brought dam, blood, and then God brought frogs, and then God brought this, and then God brought that. That's all he had to do. But no, he goes into all this narrative about all these things that he says about each one of them to show us that it's going to happen again. That's why it's in the Bible. God wants us to know his day. All right, so these are the 10, quote, plagues. Let's say them together. This is always fun. Number 1, dam, blood. 2, tzvardeya, frogs. Number 3, kinim, bugs. Number 4, arov, wild animals. Number 5, dever, pestilence. Number 6, shechin, boils. Number 7, barad, hail. Number 8, arbe, locusts. Number 9, choshech, darkness. And number 10, makat bekorot, death of the firstborn. Now, if you look up on the internet, which is a horrible idea, usually, you're not going to see arov as wild animals. You're going to see flies. It is not flies. It's not anything like flies. It is wild beasts. It's herds, flocks. I don't know what they call them. Like a whole bunch of tigers. What do you call that? Prides and things like that. All these gangs of wild animals. It's wild beasts. Now, kinim is literally lice. That's the kind of insects it is. It's literally biters. Kinim. All right, so let's look at the locusts. So here's what we're focusing on. If you refuse to send them, talking to Pharaoh, if you refuse to send the Jews out, I am going to bring locusts into your borders, and they will obscure the view of the earth. No one will be able to see the earth. You just read that, you think it's an exaggeration. I mean, got lots of pictures of locust swarms. There's very, very few where you can't see the earth at all. Like even if you're above, you can't see the earth at all. Very few. So I read that and I'm like, okay, really? Yeah, maybe it's an exaggeration. It's not an exaggeration. It's literal and it's important. So that's what we're going to talk about. What it says in Hebrew, it says, and cover the eye of the earth. V'kisa et ein haaretz. V'kisa, and cover over, et ein haaretz. Ein is eye. And cover the ein, the eye, haaretz, of the earth. In other words, the earth can't see. Like a mask. Yeah? Like a mask put over the eyes so you can't see. And who can't see? The earth. Not the people, the earth. The earth can't see. The earth is blind because of this locust swarm coming. Now, what we're going to do is we're going to look at all the verses that talk about this, and we're just going to put the clues together and see what the picture paints, the picture that is painted for us. What is God trying to say here? Because this stuff is in the Bible. It's got to be there for a reason. It's not just history. Because over and over and over, it's going to compare something to the locusts. Judges 6, the sons of Israel did what was evil in the sight of the Lord, and Yehovah handed them over to Midian for 7 years. 7 years. So this is a picture of what? The birth pangs. This is a picture of the birth pangs. So they would destroy the produce of the earth, just like it said here, and they will eat the remnant. Now, a remnant is people. Remember, we looked at that 2 weeks ago about who is Israel. Israel is the remnant. All 10 tribes are still in existence. There's a remnant of all. They were never lost. There's a remnant. But this says they'll eat the remnant. You think it's like vegetation. It's not vegetation. It's people. Now, these locusts ate the vegetation. They did. But these didn't. These, whoever this is, whatever this is, ate the people. It says that whenever Israel had sown, the Midianites would come up with Amalek. Amalek, for those of you who don't know, Amalek is the number one arch enemy of the of the Jewish people and of God. The scribes, every morning before they write the Torah scroll, they write letters in the Torah scroll, they first write this word Amalek in Hebrew, and then they scratch it out every single day that they write in the Torah scroll. That's how they start their day. They go in the mikvah, they cleanse themselves, they get dressed in whatever they're going to wear to do the scribal work, and then they write the word Amalek and they scratch it out. Because Amalek is the worst enemy that we have. So they came with Amalek, and they would destroy the produce, the produce of the earth, and leave no food in Israel. They would come up with their livestock and their tents, and they would come in like arbe, like locusts. Why didn't God say they'd come in like, I don't know, a swarm of flies? But they don't. They come in like locusts. Ka'arbe, like locusts. In number, they and their camels were innumerable. They came into the land to ruin it. Israel was brought very low because of Midian. That means they were killed. And the sons of Israel cried out to the Lord. So they ate up the Jews. And they came in like locusts. And this is a pretty good picture. By the way, I got that picture from an Israeli site, which I thought was interesting. I'm going to bring locusts, and they will obscure the view of the earth. No one will be able to see the earth. Now, in this picture, this is cool. See that brown haze in the background? That's locusts. Billions of them. Billions. And cover the eye of the earth. Now, Job 39 says this, do you give the horse his might? Do you clothe his neck with a mane? Do you make him leap like locusts? Why? Would you ever compare a horse to a locust the way it leaps? Like into battle or something like that? I wouldn't, but God does. Why? Because here in this picture, and it's important, locust equals horses. Now we just saw with Gideon, this is about Gideon, the locust was compared to what? The locust was compared to what? Midianites and Amalekites. In other words, armies. Yes? Armies. Okay, here they're armies. Here, they're horses. All the details are important. You're going to have to remember all of them because you will be quizzed at the end. Really, the scriptures actually literally quiz us at the end. So we're going to read it and go, what does that mean? What does that mean? Do you make him leap like a locust? His majestic snorting is frightening. He paws in the valley. He rejoices in his strength. He goes out to meet in battle. Okay. With Gideon, we saw that the locust is what? Armies. Now we see that it's horses going to battle. Same picture. Yes? Same picture. Isaiah 33. Woe to you, destroyer. As soon as you finish destroying, you will be destroyed. Yehovah, be gracious to us, our salvation in time of tsar. What is tsar? Birth pangs. That is the word for birth pangs. Chevlei HaMashiach, which means twisting of Messiah, twisting like women twist in birth pangs. But the other word is tsarim, or tsarot, male and female. And it means troubles or tribulation. It's that word. So this is the birth pangs. And it says, you are our Yeshua, our salvation during the birth pangs. At the sound of a roar, peoples flee. Your plunder is gathered. The caterpillar gathers like an infestation of Why compare it to locusts during the birth pangs? Because that's where they are. That's where the locusts are, in the tsarim, in the tsarot, in the birth pangs. Like an infestation of locusts, people storm it. Yes. Yes, that's Sadi Resh. Tsar. Exactly. Jeremiah 51. Now, this is all about the destruction of Babylon. Now, don't get lost here, because you're going to have to put a few things together and remember them. In the book of Revelation, in the book of Chazon, in chapter 18, it talks about the destruction of Babylon. And it quotes Jeremiah 49, Jeremiah 50, Jeremiah 51, and Jeremiah 52. All of it. And it kind of squishes it all together and pulls little parts of it and quotes it. And it's all about the destruction of Babylon. Why? Because in Jeremiah 49, 50, 51, 52, it's all about the destruction of Babylon. Now, in chapter 51, 14 through 15, it says, you who live by many waters, abundant in treasures, your end has come. The Lord of hosts has sworn by himself, I will certainly fill you with a population like locusts. So some army is coming to destroy Babylon. And they will cry with shouts of victory over you. Lift up a signal flag in the land. Blow a shofar among the Gentiles. Consecrate the Gentiles against her. Summon against her the kingdoms of Ararat, that's Turkey, Mini, Ashkenaz. Appoint an officer against her. Bring up the horses like bristly locusts. So here we have it again. The horses are what? Locusts. The locusts are horses, and they're an army. Yes? Pretty clear. So far, it's crystal clear. Ashkenaz is Germany, believe it or not. Consecrate the Gentiles against her, the kings of the Medes. Let's go through the four big kingdoms. This is why I said don't get lost. We got to put something else together here. The first one is Babylon. I'll give you that. Who came and destroyed Babylon? You just said it. Who came and destroyed Babylon? Persia. Medo-Persia. Who came and destroyed Medo-Persia? Greece. Thank you. Who came and destroyed Greece? Rome. Those are the four big kingdoms in the Bible. Babylon, Medo-Persia, Greece, Rome. Now this is talking about the destruction of Babylon. Who destroyed Babylon? Persia. Medo-Persia. But in the kingdom, it's going to be Gentiles, nations or Gentiles, Ararat, Mini, Ashkenaz, and Medo-Persia. So in other words, a whole bunch of nations. And they come like locusts on horses, so to speak. So locusts in the future, locusts are in the future. We've seen that they are future. They're in the future. Locusts are in the future. Locusts are an army, and locusts are horses. Yes, sir? I was going to say, I love this picture. This is during the Iraqi war? Is that what you're saying? Oh, the passage. Yes, yes. That's what Joe said. So, hold on. What happened in the Iraqi war, America's longest war, was a tiny picture of what's coming. Tiny, minuscule. To you, it was devastating and life-changing. The whole world, it was devastating and life-changing.
especially you who lived through it. But it was tip of the iceberg of what's coming. Yeah, itty bitty bitty. I love this picture though. This poor guy in Africa just trying to somehow get through this cloud of locusts. I mean, it's bad for him, but it's a cool picture. Because this is what's coming. Look at that cloud.
In a sense, excuse me, I'm sorry, but now they're saying that they're taking these locusts, these crickets and bugs, mashing them up and then put them into flour.
So you're saying, oh, I'm glad you brought that up, that they're mashing up the locusts and crickets, bugs too, but let's talk about locusts and crickets. Locusts and crickets are kosher, and they're making flour out of it, and that is kosher. You know why they're kosher? Because they have jointed legs, it says in Leviticus 11, to leap upon the earth. Why? Because God built them as a picture of these armies. That's why they're kosher. And that's it. That's the only reason. Strange, right? But that's how it is. Now, Joel chapter 1 is more detailed than any other passage about locusts, because it goes from Joel 1 to Joel 2 to Joel 3, and it's all about this locust swarm. But no locust swarm came. The whole book is about this locust swarm that's coming, but no locust swarm came. And they say, repent of your sins. Priests cry out between the porch and the altar because of the locust swarm. Please do something, God. But there's no locust swarm came. So what does that tell us? It's for the future, period. It's all about the future. Joel 1, hear this, you elders. Listen, all people of the land. Has anything like this happened in your days or in your father's days? Tell your children about it. Tell your grandchildren about it. Why is he getting all hyped up about, it never happened before? Because that's what he's saying. He's saying nothing like this has ever happened. Why? Because it's going to be worse the next time. Same exact thing it said in the Torah. Nothing like this has happened in your days or in your father's day. Tell your kids about it. Have your sons tell their sons and their sons to the third generation about it. Now watch this. What the gnawing locust, there's one, has left, the swarming locust has eaten. What the swarming locusts have left, the creeping locust has eaten. What the creeping locust has left, the stripping locust has eaten. I looked at this and immediately I counted them. And I thought, I wonder if there's 4. And there was. Babylon, the gnawing locust, swarming locust, Medo-Persia, creeping locust, Greece, and stripping locust, Rome. And these words are very descriptive of the kingdoms themselves for another time. But those are the 4 kingdoms. So what does that tell us? That tells us that the attack of these locusts is not for their time. It's not for anybody's time until the kingdom. It's for the future, and for the future only. Because we've gone through all 4 kingdoms. After that is the kingdom. That's what it says in Daniel over and over and over again. You have 4 kingdoms, and then the Messiah comes and sets up his kingdom. So he says, all these 4 kingdoms of locusts come. Wake up, you drunkards. Weep and wail, for a nation, a Gentile, has invaded my land. Mighty and without number. Its teeth are the teeth of a lion. You have to remember that picture. Its teeth are the teeth of a lion, with jaws of a lioness. It has made my vine waste. What is God's vine? Israel. Strip them bare. Verse 15, cry out to the Lord, woe for the day of the Lord. Now he just comes right out and says, I'm talking about the day of the Lord. I'm not talking about present time in northern Israel, when Assyria came and took them all away, but left a remnant. He's talking about the day of the Lord is near, and it will come as destruction from the Almighty. In Isaiah chapter 13, verse 6, it says word for word the same thing. Wail, for the day of the Lord is coming. It will come as destruction from the Almighty. All hands will fall limp. All knees will become weak as water. All faces will be on fire. Who can stand before this day? Same words. Chapter 2, verse 1 through 6. For the day of the Lord is coming. Now he says it again. Indeed, it is near. This is 700 years before Yeshua came. That makes this 2,700 years ago. It's near. The day of the Lord is near. It's ridiculous. It's ridiculous. Unless you're there and you say, Bo, come look, come see. It's right here. Okay? So, I mean, we're talking about prophecy. That's why it sounds so ridiculous. For the day of the Lord is coming. Indeed, it is near. A day of clouds and thick darkness. I always wondered why it's called the day of clouds and thick darkness. Now I know. There it is. The locust cloud coming. That's what makes it dark. There's a great and mighty people. Oh, there, he tells us. A day of clouds and thick darkness. There's a great and mighty people. Never been anything like it. Nor will there be again to the years of many generations. So in other words, he's telling us many generations later, it will come. He's using the same kind of wording as it's never been anything like this, ever, ever, ever. In other words, it's coming again, only worse. But he says there's a great and mighty people. Never been anything like it. That is the cloud. That's what the cloud is. It's this great and mighty people coming. As an army, as a war. They look like lions. Yes? They're on horses. There's a great and mighty people. There's never been anything like it, nor will there be until the years of many generations. Nothing at all escapes them. You know, this always bothered me when I'm watching movies about the Holocaust. You know, when I was younger, I used to think, oh, I could have hid. I could have hid. But then you see these movies, and they're like so insidious. The Nazis were about how to find. They were called. I just saw a movie about it. Juden. I can't remember. Were for hunters. They were called Jew hunters. Juden. It starts with a J, and I can't remember what it was. Just saw a movie about it. Another one. Yeah, and it's. That was their job, to hunt Jews. And you could not escape. I mean, you couldn't get away. And this used to always bother me when I was younger. I thought, well, I could get away. I could find a way to slither my way. And that's what it says here. Nothing at all escapes them. That's how it's going to be in the birth pangs. Their appearance is like, horses. Their appearance is like horses, and they run like war horses, with a noise like chariots. They leap on the tops of the mountains like a mighty people drawn up for battle. Before them, the people are in anguish. All faces turn pale. It is the day of the Lord. It's the birth pangs. Chapter 2, verse 9 through 11. They climb into the houses. They enter through the windows like a thief. If you've heard the myth about the beloved thief, that Jesus comes like a beloved thief, this is what Yeshua was quoting. He's talking about the enemy. They come like a thief. The day of the Lord comes like a thief, as it says in Peter and in 1 Thessalonians. The day of the Lord comes like a thief, not the Lord. And this is one of the verses that Yeshua was quoting. It starts in verse 1, the day of the Lord is coming. Then in verse 9, they climb into the houses, they enter through the windows like a thief. Before them the earth quakes, the heavens tremble, the sun and the moon become dark, and the stars lose their brightness. Why? Because of the cloud of the people who are coming. The Lord utters his voice before his army. His army. These are not good guys, these are bad guys. But God calls them his army. Why? Because this is planned by God, and it is to bring the birth pangs. Remember, makot means spanking, and that rod that spanks is God's hand. And so whatever army he uses to do it is his hand. It's his army. The Lord utters his voice before his army. His camp is indeed very great. For mighty is the one who carries out his word. The day of the Lord. I mean, it can't be any clearer what he's talking about, yes? What's he talking about? The day of the Lord. The day of the Lord is very great and very awesome. Who can endure it? All right, look at that cloud. That's weird, isn't it? Now that, if you got enough and it's spread out over enough space, you couldn't see through that. Yeah, and if you look down at the bottom, see that shadow that's cast on the earth from it? I mean, this is something we can't even imagine. But God has given us little pictures of it with locust swarms. So we can sort of picture it. And we're supposed to. We're supposed to understand this. Ezekiel 38. Believers love to quote this set of verses, this passage. And they'd love to talk about the coming of Gog and Magog. And they link it with Armageddon. First of all, it's not linked with Armageddon. Secondly, it happens twice in the birth pangs. And there are 10 nations here that are coming. Not Gog. There's 10 nations here. Son of man, set your face toward Gog, of the land of Magog, Rosh, Meshech, and Tuval. We already got 5. And prophesy against him and say, I will turn you round, all 5 of you so far, turn you around, put hooks in your jaws, bring you out, all your army, a great host, Persia, Cush. Now there's 2 Cushes in the Bible. There's one in Ethiopia, and there's one right outside of Babylon. This is the Babylon one. Do I have to add, or did I already add? Did I already add Cush?
Yeah.
Okay. And put with them. All of them with buckler and helmet, Gomer, and the house of Togarma, Beit Togarma. That's 10 nations. How many, quote, plagues were there? That's the picture. That's why God's going to do that again. That's why God brought 10. Because there are 10 in this army coming as a swarm of locusts. Verses 8 through 9. After many days you will be summoned in the latter years. So he's telling us when it's going to happen. You will come into the land restored from the sword, who have been gathered from many Gentiles. Now that didn't happen until 1948. The Jews came back to Israel, to the mountains of Israel, which had been a ruin. But now he gives more detail. He says it had been a ruin continually, but its people were brought out of the Gentiles, and they live in security, all of them. Is that the case for Israel? No. We just saw again yesterday another terrorist attack on Holocaust Remembrance Day, Yom HaShoah. Holocaust Remembrance Day, another terrorist attack. We do not live in security yet, but incrementally, the Jewish people are coming back, and incrementally, we will live in security. And then as soon as we live in security, all hell breaks loose, and the day of the Lord comes. They will live in security, all of them, and you will go up. You will come like a storm. You will be like a cloud covering the earth, you and all your troops and many peoples with you. You will come like a cloud covering the earth, covering the face, the eye of the earth. So that's why God said it the way he said it in Exodus, as a picture of it happening in the birth pangs. And I mean the specificity of what's going to happen in the birth pangs. Now, we're going to leap from the past into the future. Now, I told you that everything in the book of Revelation happens during the day of the Lord. Revelation 1:10 says this. When you read it in the Bible, it doesn't say that. It says, I was in the Spirit on the Lord's day and heard a shofar and said, come up, etc. It's not what it says. It says, I was in the Spirit unto, taken to, in Greek, the day of the Lord. That's what it says. I was taken in the Spirit to the day of the Lord. And I heard a shofar saying, come up, and I experienced the resurrection. And so in the book of Revelation, you are in the birth pangs. And this is what it says in chapter 9. The fifth angel sounded. What year of the birth pangs is it? Fifth year. Fifth year of the birth pangs. And I saw a star from heaven, which had fallen to the earth, and the key to the shaft of the pit. Now there's a bunch of verses in the prophets that talk about this pit. It's called the bore. And it talks about all the uncircumcised being in the bore in the day of the Lord, and that they come out with Hasatan. That's what's happening here. These are demons. He opened the shaft of the bore, and the smoke ascended out of the shaft like the smoke of a great furnace, and the sun and the air were darkened from the smoke of the shaft. So what's coming up out of the shaft? This army of locusts, so to speak. And it just darkens the earth. And it makes everything go black, everything go dark, because there's so many of them. Then out of the shaft, like the smoke of a great furnace, and the sun and the air were darkened from the smoke of the shaft. Then out of the smoke came locusts. Could it be any clearer? What year of the birth pangs is this going to happen in? 6,000. No, what year of the birth pangs? We can't go there. Fifth year of the birth pangs, yeah? Let's just talk about what year of the birth pangs, because there's people who can't do that calculation right now. So the fifth year of the birth pangs, that's when let me back up. Who attacked northern Israel that was pictured as a locust swarm? Say it again. So close. Add an A. Add an A. No. Who came and took northern Israel away that was pictured like locusts? No. Thank you. Say it louder. Assyrian. You got to add an A, Joe. Assyrians. The Assyrians are who came and took northern Israel away. So this, in the fifth year of the birth pangs, is called the Assyrian invasion. The Assyrian invasion. Just like it happened before, it's going to happen again. Only way, way, way worse. So out of the smoke came locusts on the earth, and power was given them as the scorpions of the earth have power. They were told, remember, this is a metaphor. They were told not to hurt the grass of the earth. That's a metaphor. Don't hurt any green thing. What? How can locusts not harm any green thing? That's all they do. They're herbivores, right? So what does that tell us? They're not locusts. What are they? They're people. They're horses, people, armies, yeah. Yes, they're demons, but they're also people. They're demons in the form of humans. That's another story. Let's not go off on that. So let's just follow the picture right now. So we have this gigantic army. It is not the Chinese, by the way. We have this gigantic army coming up out of the pit. And they're pictured like locusts, and they're told, don't harm any green thing, which tells us straight up, they're not locusts. They're humans. So they were told not to hurt. And remember, we're in the book of Revelation reading this. This is during the birth pangs. They were told not to hurt the grass of the earth. Don't hurt any green thing. Don't hurt any tree, so they're not locusts. But only hurt the people who do not have the seal of God on their foreheads. Now, verse 7 through 10. The locusts looked like horses prepared for battle. What's he quoting? Judges, Job, Judges, Joel, Ezekiel. Yes? Yeah? And Jeremiah. Isaiah, sorry. All of them. He's quoting all of them. They looked like horses prepared for battle, and on their heads crowns like gold. And their faces were like humans. Oh, so he told us what they are. They're not locusts. They're people. At least they look like people. And there's the key. They're not people. They're demons, but they're people. They had hair like women. That's from Deuteronomy 33. Don't get freaked out. It just means, it calls the long-haired leaders of the enemy in Deuteronomy 33. And their teeth were like the teeth of lions. We saw that. They had breastplates of iron. Who's iron? We had gold, silver, bronze, and Rome. And iron. Who's iron? Rome. Who's gold? We have the 4 kingdoms. Babylon. Then we have Medo-Persia. That's silver. Then we have Greece. That's not copper, bronze. Then iron is Rome. 4 kingdoms. So it says that their teeth were like the teeth of what? Lions. Who's that? We just did it. Babylon. It's Babylon. They had teeth like Babylon. They had breastplates of iron. Who's that? Rome. They're like Rome. And the sound of their wings was like the sound of chariots and many horses rushing to battle. We saw that in Joel. Straight up. They have tails like scorpions and stings, and then their tails is their power to hurt people for 5 months. What year of the birth pangs is this? 5. And so they're given power for 5 months, just to repeat that image. Then verse 12. Now watch this. The first oi, oi. It's not whoa, it's oi. The first oi has passed. Behold, 2 ois are still coming after these things. There's our last 5 makot, or plagues. What number is locusts? 8. How many are left? 2 more after that. So that's why he says this. The first oi has passed. That's the arbe. There's 2 more coming. Choshech and makat habakorot. Yes? The locusts, then darkness, then death of the firstborn. That's why it says 1 is past, there's 2 more coming. Yes? So you can, exactly. So it'll key you off so you can remember the locusts in Exodus and know that there's 2 more coming. Yes? I mean, that is a crystal clear picture. Crystal clear.
So he's not counting the 7 that came before the 8?
Nope. And that is the question I'm glad you asked. I was just asked, so he doesn't talk about the 7 that came before the 8th? Yes, except it's scattered through the book of Revelation. And I'm going to show you how. We're just going to go through this fast because it'll take a while. So he mentions all of them except for 2 that I can find. Maybe you can go find them. I wasn't smart enough to find them. Doesn't mean they're not there. Just means I wasn't smart enough to find it. So, dam, blood. Revelation 8:8, the second angel sounded. What year of the birth pangs is it? What year of the birth pangs is it?
2.
2nd year. Say it out loud. 2nd year. And something like a great mountain burning with fire was hurled to the sea. In Exodus, how did the hail come down? Do you remember? It was mixed with fire, which is weird. But this says there was a great mountain burning with fire, hurled into the sea, and 1/3 of the sea became blood. What year of the birth pangs was that? 2nd. All right. Revelation 11:6. This is when the 2 witnesses, Moshe and Eliyahu, are prophesying for the first half of the birth pangs. And at the end of it, it says they have the power over the waters to turn them to blood. Who did that? Moses, Moshe. Well, here he is again. The 2 witnesses are Moses and Elijah. And they're there for the first half of the birth pangs until they're murdered in the streets of Jerusalem. Then Revelation chapter 16, the 2nd angel, what year of the birth pangs is it? 2nd. The 2nd angel poured out his machta, his fire pan, into the sea, and it became blood, like that of the dead man. So I'm like, why is this happening 2 times in the 2nd year of the birth pangs? This was the first spanking, wasn't it? This was the first plague, wasn't it? I don't have it here. So the first plague was dam. but it's going to happen in the second year of the birth pangs. All right? There's a whole story behind that. We don't have time. So then he says, the sea and poured it out into the sea, and it became blood like that of a dead man. And every living thing in the sea died. Then the third angel poured out his bowl. Oh, what year of the birth pangs is it? Third. So it happens 2 times. Second year and third year. Poured out his bowl. I have bowl there, sorry. His machtah into the rivers and the springs of water, and they became blood. So you see, the plagues are spread out throughout the birth pangs, except for one of them, the locust. That one is crystal clear. Every single thing about it is crystal clear. The others are kind of, sprinkled throughout. Sphardea, frogs, Revelation 16. The 6th angel, what year of the birth pangs is it? 6th year. Poured out his machtah on the great river, the Euphrates, and its water was dried up. Now this is where many people have gotten the mistaken idea that it's the Chinese army, the army of China coming across the Euphrates. Not what it is. This is the Assyrian invasion. Where was Assyria? At the Euphrates and the Tigris. Yes? So God dried it up so they could come. That's all. So he says, 6th angel poured out his machtah on the great river Euphrates, and its water was dried up. And I saw coming out of the mouth of the dragon, this is Hasatan, out of the mouth of the beast, the behemoth, that's the false Messiah, and out of the mouth of the false prophet, 3 unclean spirits like frogs, Sphardea. Now this isn't one frog. This is one guy speaking a billion things. Like, picture Hitler. Hitler says one little sentence, let's get rid of all the Jews. And what happens? A billion Nazis go into action. So that's what it's like. It's a flood. It's an invasion of frogs from 3 different sources. Hasatan, false Messiah, and false prophet. And they're all saying the same thing. Destroy the Jews. They are spirits of demons doing miracles, which go out to the kings of the entire world to do what? To gather them to Har Megiddo. What year of the birth pangs do these frogs go out? 6th, not the last year of the birth pangs. The 6th year of the birth pangs. Now, we come to kinim, bugs. Couldn't find anything. Maybe you guys can do a better job than me. I just couldn't find it. Busy teaching art, trying to do this in between. So maybe you can do a better job. Arov, wild animals. Now this, you're going to get lost if you don't know this very, very simple thing. First of all translations say flies, and it's wrong. Why do they say flies? Because Gesenius, or Gesenius, put flies, horse flies, etc., in his Hebrew lexicon. And so all the Christians picked that up. That's all the source they had. But the Jews have always said from the beginning of time that Arov are beasts, swarms of beasts. Every single commentary in Judaism says it. So, it comes from the word Arav, like Arvit, the evening prayers, which means to braid or to intermix. Why? Because sun's going down and you're mixing evening with day. And so it's Erev, evening. So it says intermix, technically to traffic. Also, now don't get lost here, to give security or an exchange, which means like a down payment, which means you make a deal. It means to make a deal. To engage, to mingle, to mortgage, to give pledge, to become surety. In other words, to make a covenant. To make a covenant. This is the beast. But there's a bunch of them. Arov means a swarm of them. but they're led by one beast. You get what I'm saying? Now, in Daniel 9, it says, this is what it says: the Messiah will be cut off and have nothing, and the people of the prince who is to come. This is written after the first temple was destroyed, and then they came back to Israel. This is written by Daniel. So, first temple's out of the equation. It's talking about the second temple. Who destroyed the second temple? In 70 AD. Who destroyed the second temple? Thank you. Who destroyed the second temple? Rome in 70 AD. And what it says is, now follow this, the people of the prince who is to come in the future. Where am I going? And the people of the prince who is to come will destroy the city and the sanctuary. Who destroyed the city and the sanctuary? Rome. The people of the prince who is to come. In other words, Rome. This is talking about Rome. Rome, we'll read it like that, will destroy the city and the sanctuary, and the leader of that, he, the beast, will confirm a covenant with the many. That means make a deal with the Jews. Make a bargain. Make a covenant, a brit with the Jews. When is he going to do this?
6 years.
Well, he's going to tell us exactly when he does this. He will confirm a covenant with the many for 1 week. How long is 1 week? 7 what? 7 years. That's the birthpangs. For 7 years, but in the middle of the week, he's going to stop the sacrifices. And on the wing of abominations will come one who makes desolate. That's the abomination of desolation. On the wing of abominations will come one who makes desolate. Abomination of desolation. Make sense? So this is not talking about Rome. This is talking about the people of the prince who is to come, which is the kingdom of Rome, which is in existence still today, which will be in existence in the day of the Lord, which will be led by the false Messiah. That's why he's the beast. That's why he's the beast. Robert, that's why he's the beast. Because it's Arov. Swarms of these beasts. Revelation 6. I looked. This is when the fourth seal was broken. What year of the birth pangs is it? Fourth year. And there's a pale horse, and his name sat on him who was death, and hell followed, and power was given to kill with the sword and with the beasts of the earth. That's the Arov. Still on Arov. Revelation 12. I stood upon the sand of the sea. The sand of the sea, just to make it short, are the Jews. The sea itself is the Gentiles. The Jewish people make a boundary or a border for the Gentiles and say you can go this far and no farther. That's it. That's the sand. I stood upon the sand of the sea among the Jews and saw a beast rise up out of the sea, out of the Gentiles, having 7 heads and 10 horns. And the beast that I saw was like a leopard. Who's the leopard? Very good, Becca. Remember, Babylon is who? What animal is Babylon? Lion, good. What animal is Medo-Persia? The bear, good. What animal is Greece? The leopard, good. And what animal is Rome? No, Tyrannosaurus Rex. You can't describe it. It doesn't tell us. So this says that the beast that I saw was like a leopard. Greece. Hellenism. If you had to sum up, and this is where everybody leaves me. This is where all the people who listen to me leave me. Right here. Right at this joint. Right here. Because they don't want to hear it. And by the way, I just watched an Israeli say word for word what I say. And he's not a believer. And then I've heard Israelis who are believers say word for word the same thing I'm saying. But they get a lot of people. I don't, for some reason. Maybe it's the way I say it. Maybe it's who I'm saying it to. Hellenism is the number one damaging thing to your life. It is the one thing that has destroyed you. It is the one thing in our life that takes us away from God's ways. And it is Greece. It is the leopard. It is the beast. When the beast comes, he is going to be Hellenism incarnate. And you know what he's going to look like? Jesus Christ. Hellenism incarnate. And this is where everybody leaves me. Maybe it's because I say that. Who knows? But it's the truth. Hellenism, if you had to sum up everything about the beast, it would be Hellenism. Okay, enough of that. So the beast that I saw was like a leopard. His feet were like a bear. Who's the bear? Who does he move like? No, not Babylon. Medo-Persia. Come on, guys. Who's the bear? Who's the bear? Who's the bear? Medo-Persia. So he is like a leopard, like Greece, but he moves like these masses of armies, like Medo-Persia did. And his mouth, he speaks like a lion. Who's the lion? Nebuchadnezzar, Babylon. He talks just like Babylon. I am God. There is nobody greater than me. That's what Nebuchadnezzar did. And the dragon gave him his power and his throne and great authority. All right, that's the beast. Revelation 12, then I saw another beast coming up. And he had two horns like a lamb. And he spoke just like the dragon. He exercises all the authority of the first beast. Who's the first beast? False Messiah. He exercises all the authority that the first beast does, that the false Messiah does. And he makes the whole earth worship that first beast, the false Messiah. It's a powerful guy. This is Goebbels to Hitler. This is Goebbels. Goebbels was his right-hand man who implemented and spoke the same concepts that Hitler did. These two guys were a picture. Goebbels. Goebbels. G-O-E-B-B-E-L-S. Goebbels. So it says, makes the whole earth worship the first beast. All right, so he's another beast. Revelation 17, he carried me away in the spirit to a desert. And I saw a woman sitting on a scarlet beast. Here's another beast. That's why it's Arov, a whole bunch of them. We got already 3 big beasts and then a whole bunch, millions of little ones. So I see a scarlet beast full of disgusting names, having 7 heads and 10 horns, just like we saw in Revelation 12. Revelation 19, and I saw the beast and the kings of the earth and their armies assembled to make war against him who sat on the horse and against his army. This is when the Messiah comes. And they all get together and they assemble. This is the second Har-Megiddo. What year did Har-Megiddo happen? Armageddon happen? 6th year. Good. This 6th year of the Birthpangs. This is in the 7th year when the Messiah actually comes. And now they've all gotten together, an Arov, a whole swarm of them, the beast and the kings of the earth and their armies assembled, like a swarm, to make war against the Messiah coming. Now, I saved this one for last because it's so clear. Revelation 6, and I looked, this is when the 4th seal is broken. What year of the birth pangs? 4th year. And a pale horse, and his name that sat on him was Death. And maybe you caught this the first 2 times that we read it. Power was given to kill with the sword, to kill with hunger and death, and with the beasts of the earth. This is the Arov. And what year of the birth pangs does this start? The 4th. 4th, 5th, 6th, and 7th is the Arov. It never goes away once it starts. Then we have Dever, pestilence. Couldn't find anything because I didn't have time. Shechin, only found 1 verse. There might be more. Revelation 16, and the 5th angel poured out his machtah. And what year of the birth pangs is it? 5th. That's the year of the Assyrian invasion. Yeah? Okay. So, Shechin, and in the 5th year, it pours out his machtah, and this is weird, they gnawed their tongues. I guess that's a Greek phrase. I'm unfamiliar with that in Hebrew. They gnawed their tongues because of pain. So I don't know what's being quoted in the prophets here. And they blasphemed the God of heaven because of their pain and their sores. It doesn't say anything in the description about God giving them sores. It just kind of shows up. This is Shechin, the sores. They're painful. They're like Job. Sit there scraping the sores off with a pot shard. He did that as a picture. And they're gnawing their tongue because of the pain and the sores. All right, and now barad. Now this is a big one. There's a bunch of verses, several verses about this. I've only heard one quoted really, like when people really talk about it. There's only one. It's the last one. But there's several before it. Barad, hail. How did the hail come down? Good, like fire. Comes down in fire. The first angel, so this is in the first year of the birth pangs. There followed hail and fire along with blood. Hey, blood. I thought we saw that in the second and third year. Now we see it in the first year. So it's first, second, and third year is blood. That's why it's the first plague. It starts in the beginning. It really never lets up. It probably doesn't let up until the middle of the birth pangs for the first 3.5 years. Because it's in the first year, in the second year, in the third year. The first angel sounded, and there followed hail and fire, just like it came down in Exodus. Hail mixed with fire, which is a weird, weird concept, along with blood. And they were cast on the earth, and the third part of the trees was burned up, and all green grass was burned up. And by the way, it's not grass and it's not trees. It's people that are Jews and people that are Gentiles. That's another story. Barad. Say it again? Okay, you with it? All right. Revelation 8:7. The first angel sounded, and there followed hail and fire, along with blood. So this is the same thing. Cast on the earth, third part of the trees was burned up. Now Revelation 11. It kind of continues the story. Then the seventh, now we're all the way to the end of the birth pangs. The seventh angel sounded. So in the first year there's barad, and now in the seventh year there's barad. The seventh angel sounded, there were loud voices in heaven, and the temple of God in heaven was opened. I thought the church was the temple of God. How can there be a temple in heaven that's opened if it's the church? It's impossible. It's impossible. Well, I didn't think it was a church. I'm lying. I'm mocking myself. I didn't think it was a church. There are many people who do. It's impossible. The temple was opened in heaven because there's a temple in heaven. And the Ark of His covenant appeared. So what part of the church is that? The Ark of the Covenant appeared in His temple. And there were flashes of lightning and voices of thunder, exactly like it describes in the book of Exodus. And an earthquake and great hailstorm. You're going to get more details about this great hailstorm because it's the last year of the birth pangs. Now, Revelation 16. Then the seventh angel poured out his machtah. What year of the birth pangs is it? Seventh. On the air, and a loud voice came out of the temple from the throne saying, "It is finished." Just like Yeshua said on the cross. Why did they say it is finished? Because it's the last year of the birth pangs. This is everything that has ever been written in the Bible. And now it's done. It's done. Everything that God prophesied to us and told us that we're supposed to know is now done. Because it's the seventh year of the birth pangs. And here comes the Messiah. And it's done. So, seventh year of the birth pangs, he says, it is finished, and huge hailstone. Every time I read this, I'm like, come on. This has got to be exaggeration. It's got to be. Maybe not. And huge hailstones weighing about 1 talent each. You guys know how heavy a talent is? Anybody know? Very close. 96.3 pounds. One hailstone, 96 point. Come on. Come on. So I researched hail, and this is what I found. Hail is built like a snowball. Starts out like a little thing, and it rolls, and it gets bigger and bigger and bigger. The way it happens is that the air currents bring that little ice crystal up into the upper atmosphere, and as it's dropping, it gains other crystals to it, little water molecules to it, and it gets bigger. And then the wind brings it back up again, and then down, and then up, and down. And the more it goes up and down, the bigger the hailstone is. Now, they have on record hailstones the size of a softball. It's the biggest they've ever recorded. This is 96 pounds, which means, I suppose, that it's been going up and down for 6,000 years. Makes sense, because there's a whole bunch of verses in the Torah, in the Tanakh, that say the otsarim of the hail, which means storehouses, and that it's what it says is they're in reserve for that day. So I guess for the last 6,000 years, they've been going up and down, getting bigger and bigger and bigger, and then God finally sends them. I suppose. Maybe I'm wrong, but that's the best I got. Huge hailstones weighing about 100 pounds each came down, and people blasphemed God because of the plague of the barad, and it was extremely severe. 7th year. So we saw hail in the 1st year, and then we see hail in the 7th year. Why do you think that is? Because the 1st year was a warm-up. Yeah. All right, last 2. Choshech, darkness. We already saw why it was dark. Why was it dark? Because the locusts came up in swarms, right, and covered the earth. That made it dark. And that's what it says. The 4th angel sounded, the 4th year of the birth pangs. What year does the Assyrian invasion happen? 5th. So this is the year before. The 4th angel sounded, and 1/3 of the sun and the moon and the stars were struck, so that 1/3 of them would be darkened. Just 1/3. This isn't like total darkness. This is 1/3 as a warm-up, because the next year we're going to do it for real. 1/3 of them would be darkened, and the day would not shine for 1/3 of it, and night the same way. 9/2, 5th shofar. When the Assyrian invasion happens, he opened the shaft, the abyss, and the bore, and all the locusts came out and darkened the world. 16:10, and the 5th angel poured out his machtah. That's when the Assyrian invasion happens. On the throne of the beast. What are we on? 16:10. Okay. The 7th angel, 16:10. That's not where we are. Okay. Choshech, okay. 16:10. And the 5th angel poured out his machtah on the throne of the beast. That means like his kingdom. In the kingdom of God. His kingdom in the kingdom. Just like Egypt. God never calls, well, I shouldn't say never. At first, God doesn't call Pharaoh to Moshe. Do you know what he calls him? Anybody remember? The king of Egypt. Melech Mitzrayim, the king of Egypt. It's the same thing here. He's got a kingdom. The false Messiah has a kingdom that's set up. So it goes dark. His kingdom goes dark, just like Pharaoh's kingdom went dark. And they gnawed their tongues because of the pain. So he opens up the pit, all the demons come out, and in the same year, he pours out his machtah on the throne of the beast, and his kingdom became dark, and they gnawed their tongues because of the pain. Why? Because of the sores. They happened at the same time. And then the last one. Now this one's a twist. I didn't expect to spend this much time on it. I thought I was going to fly through it. I'm sorry it took so long. So Revelation 12, this is a twist. The last plague was death of the firstborn. Yeah? Who's God's firstborn?
Israel. Messiah.
You're answering both. You can't say both. What do you say? What do you say? Israel or the Messiah? Which one?
Both.
Yes, both. Good, but Doug, you stole the fire. So it's both. God's firstborn is first the Messiah. And then in Exodus, at the Exodus, which we're reading this week, God says, Israel, you are my bekorot. You are bekorotai, my firstborn. So how did it go from being the Messiah being the firstborn to being Israel being the firstborn? Because Israel is the Messiah. The Messiah is Israel. They look the same, they talk the same, they are just like the beast and the false Messiah and Hasatan. They all do the same thing. Same way with God and Israel, with the Messiah and Israel. So I say that because this is important. And again, I don't want to offend anybody. I really don't. But it's the truth. Jesus Christ cannot be the Jewish Messiah. He can't be. Yeshua can be, but Jesus Christ, as the world pictures him and believes in him and all that jazz, cannot be. He is Hellenism incarnate. He's got long hair, breaks the Torah. He's got a short beard, breaks the Torah. And people don't see him as quoting everything out of his mouth as Torah, which it was. So he cannot be. It's just reality. So it's got to be somebody else. Messiah has to be somebody else. So if you want to see the Messiah, look at the Jewish people, and you'll see the Messiah. He's like that. Deuteronomy 18:15 and 18:18 says this. I shall raise up one from among you, Israel, one of your brothers, that will be the Messiah. Listen to him. I'll raise one up like you from among your brothers. Listen to him. Like you, Israel. So, if you want to see Yeshua, look at Israel. If you want to see Israel, look at Yeshua. Don't look at Jesus Christ, because you're not going to see Israel. Make sense? Okay, sorry to have to throw that in, but I thought it was important because of this. Now God flips the picture. The picture was that the last plague, last Makkah, was death of the firstborn. But in the kingdom, it's going to be just the opposite. It's going to be almost the death of the firstborn. But it's not. It's going to be giving birth to the firstborn. That's why it's called Birthpangs. Because Israel goes into birthpangs and gives birth to the firstborn of God, Yeshua. In other words, they all get born again. That's what that means. They all get born again. The purpose of the birthpangs is so Israel can be born again. That's its whole purpose. Does that make sense? So he flips the script here a little bit. So I don't want you to get lost. A great picture appeared in heaven. A woman clothed with the sun, the moon under her feet, and on her head a crown of 12 stars. This is word for word what Joseph saw in Genesis chapter... I can't remember the chapter. Say, what is it? Yeah. I think it's chapter 37. We'll try that. In Genesis 37 or thereabouts, Joseph sees his mommy and his daddy and his 11 brothers as the sun and the moon and the 11 stars. So there's a woman clothed with Jacob, Rachel, and all of the tribes of Israel. Who is she? I just told you. Who is she? Who is she? No. She, whoever she is clothed with Jacob, which is Israel, his wife, Rachel, and all his 12 kids, the 12 tribes. Who is she? She's Israel. A great picture appeared in heaven. Israel. I saw Israel. She looks like this. And she was pregnant. Israel was pregnant and cried out, being in labor and in pain to give birth. This is the birth pangs. Then another sign appeared. A great red dragon stood before the woman who was about to give birth to the Messiah. And so that when she gave birth, the Tyrannosaurus Rex can gobble up the baby. Yeah? Devour her child. And she gave birth to a son. She, Israel, gave birth to a son, a male, who is going to rule all the Gentiles with a rod of iron. Who is this? The Messiah. And her child was caught up to God and to his throne. The child doesn't get killed. The child almost gets killed, but doesn't get killed. And that's the whole point of the birth pangs. Israel is going to give birth to the Messiah. Now, if you can't see these crystal clear pictures and shadows, I didn't do my job. That's all I can say. I've tried my best to show this as clearly and succinctly as I can. All of these clear pictures are why we say during the Passover Seder, this little part of the step called Magid, which means the telling, in the Haggadah. So I want to say this together, but before we do, this is what it means. It means that all this stuff that God's going to bring in the birth pangs, He brings it. This is Him doing it. Because He's the one who brought. It's not like the movie, like Yul Brynner, the movie with the Ten Commandments. It's not like that, where a mist comes through the streets and kills everybody, all the firstborn. No, it says in the scriptures very clearly, I will do this myself. Not an angel, not a seraph, not a messenger. Me, God says. I'm going to come through and kill all the firstborn. Myself. Yes?
Well, in the movie, the Prince of Egypt, didn't, instead of a mist, didn't they look like a hand?
I don't remember, but so in the Prince of Egypt, it's got a hand coming down. That's pretty cool. That's pretty cool. The hand of God. I like that. If that's what it is, I like that. I don't remember. Right. But the key is this. God is the one who's going to do it in the birth pangs. Now, if you don't know the birth pangs are coming soon, you got a big problem. Because they are. And there's nothing anybody can do about it. You can't pray it away. You can't say, I'm just believing God and hanging on by the skin of my teeth. We're supposed to be getting stronger and stronger and stronger. So that when that day comes, whatever people are left on the earth after the resurrection have all this information and they'll make it. But if they don't have this information from Judaism, they will not make it. But we have to get strong before the birth pangs come. Because we couldn't make it. I mean, the same thing could happen to us. If you don't know what you're talking about, if you don't know the Bible, and I mean know the Bible, not what you've been told about the Bible, but know the pictures in the Bible, you're not going to make it. You're not. It's that simple. So this is what we hang on to, that God is doing this. So let's say this together. Let's stand. Ready? Go. And Jehovah took us out of Egypt, not through an angel, and not through a seraph, and not through a messenger, but directly by the Holy One, blessed be He Himself, as it is stated, and I will pass through the land of Egypt on that night, and I will smite every firstborn in the land of Egypt, from men to animals, and with all the gods of Egypt, I will make judgments. I am Yehovah. Let's remain standing for the Aleinu. Aleinu l'shabeach la'adon hakol, letet gedula le'yotzer bereshit, shelo asanu kogoye ha'aratzot, velo samanu kamishpachot ha'adama, shelo sam chelkenu kahem, vegor aleinu kekol hamonam. Let us adore the Lord of all, who in greatness created the world from of old, that He has not made us like the nations of the earth, not made us like the families of the land. He has not made our destiny like theirs, or cast our lot with all of them. V'ne'emar v'haya Adonai lemelech al kol haaretz Bayom hahu, yiyeh Adonai echad, ushemo echad. And it is said, the Lord shall be king over all the earth. In that day, the Lord shall be one, and His name one. Va'anachnu korim umishtachavim umodim lifnei melech malachei hamlachim hakadosh baruch hu. And we bend the knee and bow in worship and give thanks to the King of Kings, the Holy One. Blessed is he. We acknowledge before the King of Kings that there's none like him. There's nothing but him, as Torah says. Know that the Lord, he is God in the heavens above and on the earth beneath. Ein od milvado. There is nothing else but him. Shabbat shalom. Let's do Kiddush, please.